and figure it out.
Yeah. All right, we are live. This is week. Oh gosh, I don't even know what week it is,
Is
but
this
our report.
week
I
6,
think
maybe?
so. I believe so. Let's see. It's our sixth show live together. We started off with around I think 20. I want to say 20 people subscribing, but now we have around 35. So thanks all to you loyal consumers of our content, all that good stuff. Yeah, I would say kind of a major day today. As far as the markets are concerned, I honestly didn't have time to. Excuse me, I didn't really have time to break down the announcement or whatever and whatnot. But did you hear anything about the FOMC? Any details that struck you at all?
Yes, the the fact that they're not gonna raise interest rates
Mm-hmm.
this go round was nice. I think there's speculation that they probably will a couple more times by the end of the year. I think it kind of we needed some good news, and I think it kind of deflated took a little air out of the balloon when they mentioned that. But overall, I mean, I think it was good news. I did see a stat that last year at this time we were at, God, what was the number last year for inflation? I think it was like
6%.
I think it
Something.
was like 9 or something, and then
Oh,
it's down to like 4. I think it's down to 4 now. They would like for it to be around 2. So
it's gonna take a couple more rate cycles for that to happen.
yeah,
Yeah. I didn't post it, and I'm not gonna post the link today, but one of the labor disputes that's, I believe, going to have a little bit of an effect here, at least with inflation, is our what do you call it? Our dock is at strike. So currently, as of right now, there's no containers moving in the Seattle region. I don't know when it's going to be worked out, but definitely frustrating, especially in these times with stuff getting more expensive and things need to get export out of Washington and all that. But I, yeah, it's definitely a frustrating news thing that came out today. So, um,
do you have any
but
idea
is what it is.
where do y'all rank as far as port
We
city?
are we're I think eighth or ninth in the world, or Washington, or sorry, the nation at least. We're definitely not as big as you know Long Beach, which is the biggest in the world, but we're up there and we export a lot of stuff to Japan. That's like one of our big importers. So, um, anyway, how's your day been?
Pretty good. I had an interesting start to the week. I had to meet. So we posted one of my listings here several shows ago, and it went under contract quickly. So people always wonder what. All right, so you can sell your house yourself. Anyone can sell their own house, and it's all the stuff. It's all that behind the curtain stuff that a lot of people don't see until they're okay. I have a really good real estate agent, so this is what they do. So Tuesday, I got a call from the appraiser. He was going to come over and take a look at the house, and he didn't have access to the our lockbox system. So
Mm,
I always like to meet the appraisers at the property anyway, because my thinking is, look, whether it's in everybody's best interest that it appraise for contract price at least. So I met him over there, and this was a listing that we listed a little high because there was some activity. I felt like we listed at a good time, and there was a sale that is similar in size that was considerably higher in price than what ours was. So I felt pretty good about where we were. Plus, it was under contract, had 3 offers, 2 for over list price, and it was under contract in 36 hours. So
hmm
that's to me an indicator. It happens to be an indicator that very few appraisers use. They don't, there is they don't assign value to how quickly your house sells. The bank wants to see hard numbers, like here's the past sales, and here's and primarily for a true comparable. So right when he walks in, and I have a really good rapport, and I've had a good track record of meeting the appraisers. I bring an appraiser copy of, here's pertinent information about the property, some photos, and I always do and I haven't met a realtor that does this yet, but I always do a key features and upgrades sheet where I'll list all the stuff that's been done to the house.
Mm-hmm.
He walked in and he said, "Where'd you get your pricing for this?" That was the first thing he said to me. I said, "From the neighborhood." And he looked at me funny. He said, "We're going to have a tough time with this one." And I was like, "Oh gosh." And this, like most appraisers, will walk around and they'll take notes, and then they'll go back and log into their system and transcribe everything. And because it's all electronic now, this guy's literally walking around with a pad and a number 2 pencil and just like filling his forms out. So he is old school. So we had some conversation. He told me like the area was in decline. And I said, no way. I said, I sell, this is my area. I sell. And we had, it was felt a little bit more like a debate than a conversation, but we went back and forth, and I said, I was pointing out stuff that I thought was important. I said, very few of these houses have garages. We've got a detached garage it's got one bay, but it's big enough for 2 cars. So basically it's like a workshop / storage area, and then a place to park your vehicle. And he said, well, we were talking about value for that. And so I said, well, if you run into anything, give me a call. My number's on the file that I gave you. And he texted, and I was nervous. I mean, I was nervous for the first time in a long time. I was nervous about it. So he texted me a little while later and said, hey, I think we're going to be fine. He said, I got a little more square footage out of it, and I was able to give more value to the garage. So I think in those times where you can meet and have these conversations and have a good rapport with other professionals that are, associated with the process, though that goes a long way. And that's where, as a real estate agent, we bring value to our clients. It's in those moments. But I was nervous yesterday when he left, that it wasn't going to pan out, but it all worked out. And because I was thinking, okay, great, we got to go back on the market. I mean, that's where it was headed. I mean, there was no negotiating of the sales price. We were probably just going to go back on the market. So the appraisal doesn't follow the house. So in a conventional loan. And this is more for, I know this is more.
Oh, sorry.
Chat,
I'm like, yeah.
Chat of the people in the chat may not realize it. Michael Baker, what's up, man?
Sweet.
Appreciate it. Thank you,
Michael. Ask questions as much as you want, man. We are
anything. Yeah, we got some good stuff to share tonight. So
yeah.
But for those in the chat or people watching on the rewind, an appraisal in a conventional loan does not follow the house. So if it were to have gone back on the market, it's erased. But VA, it does follow it for, I believe it's 6 months. It sticks with the property. So it worked out, but it was a little scary moment with a very old school guy who was number 2 pencil and a pad. But the good news is, I mean, it actually, I think they have, and I don't know if it's different for you, but appraisers have 10 business days to upload the file to, upload their findings to the loan file. And he had already, like the next morning, no, it was later that afternoon, I think. Later that afternoon, I got a text from the buyer's agent saying, hey, the appraisal's in, and they have to just verify everything, but so it looks like everything's good. So I don't know, maybe he used a lot of the stuff that I gave him and I made his job easier. And those conversations, that's where, and I know you've got tons of stories, similar stories like that, where it's all that stuff behind the curtain that people don't usually see, where, you wouldn't be able to share an opportunity to, like, hey, this is where my value, this is why you need to have somebody like me or somebody like Ferd, is these behind the curtain moments where we're working to make sure everything stays on target. So I navigated that and got through it, but it was tense yesterday, but we're all good now.
Yeah, it's great. Typically our agents, we give them like a kind of a deadline or whatever, and then the market's so slow as far as sales transactions going on. There's still a huge amount of demand and supply, which we're probably going to say until, gosh, I don't know, another year or so. But the appraisals are coming back really quickly. I think my bank has a pretty good relationship with the network of appraisers that we have, so that definitely does help with the turnaround. But yeah, no, it's great. That's great news. I don't really get that interaction, obviously, with like the selling agent of a home, unless if they want to know what's up with the appraisal or whatever. It's more so with the buying agent. So it's always nice to hear from you, like that side of like the listing part, and because yeah, really, and with appraisals, we just request them. We can't really talk to an appraiser, and we can kind of guide like our lending standards, but they're pretty black and white, as far as like how much wiggle room we can have. So
And that's a good thing if you're watching on the rewind and or in the chat. We mentioned this on a previous show where it's a good thing now. It used to be kind of the buddy system for appraisals, and I'm gonna call my buddy to go out and take a look and
sure.
do those drive-by appraisals and pull up in front of the house. Hey, how much do we need on this one? And so thank goodness you don't. It would. Well, they've really tightened all that. I mean, you don't even know who. There's a pool. So how they're selected, and this is why it's different from 2008, from the crash. You don't have any. You can't call anybody up. You can't do anything. There's a pool of people. I don't know how many they typically use. Each lender uses, but there's a pool of people, and you put a request in, and it goes to automatically assigned or randomly assigned. So, Ferd's not calling his buddy up to make sure this one hits.
I can't even talk. I can't even say hello. I could get fired for saying hello.
Right.
It's that tight. And the other thing too is, to become an appraiser, it's very difficult. You have to go through schooling for 6 months, and then you have to be an apprentice for such a very long time. I think it's 1 to 2 years. And so I don't know what the pay is to be an apprentice to do that, but I imagine the scrutiny that appraisers are under, it's kind of a tough gig, if you will, to get into. If you're established, you're probably doing okay, but especially during the boom. But it's very highly regulated, and you can't mess up. If you mess up once, you're kind of done, and you're almost like a small business owner in a way, because I believe a lot of those appraisers are independent contractors, like they get 1099. So it's very independent from a relationship with the banks in general. And I think, from what I know, like if you kind of establish yourself in one area, like all the banks kind of choose you. And then that's just more a supply and demand thing, not so much like a favoritism type thing. But like, we have specific appraisers for like one count, or not one county, but like one little town, just because there's no appraisers in the area. So, and the cost for them to drive out to a property is quite high. So
yeah,
anyway,
I talked to one at the end of last year, and he said he was branching out because it had gotten slow compared to the previous year. So he was going into counties that he normally didn't. He was leaving mine and going somewhere 45 minutes away to do another one, which was kind of unheard of with the area that I live in. Would normally be plenty of business to keep him busy, but he was having to kind of readjust as we as we all have, since almost this time last year. So
Sure. Yeah. Well, good stuff. I mean, it sounds like you're keeping busy. I'm pretty slow, but just kind of churning and doing this type of content to keep people informed and hopefully, get good questions out of it and all that stuff. So, kind of an important day today. I was kind of slacking on the thumbnail, and honestly, because I couldn't really think of a way to kind of engage with the community of how important today was, for the next 2 months, with it being mid-June now. I'm thinking 2 months out of the announcement today. And that announcement is, the Fed. Kind of our agenda today is we're talking about, FOMC, kind of what the narrative was from the Fed, Mr. Oh my gosh, I was just say Paulson. I can't remember his name. The Fed chairman. Anyway, his name's not that important. And then I wanted to kind of cover some auto stocks. So some people had, another supply and demand constraint are vehicles right now. And I was looking at one company called Carvana, which was kind of a bellwether for the pandemic economy. And they had an amazing quarter. I'm not going to talk about them today, but it kind of made me think, if a used car dealership, internet, what have you, is having, amazing numbers, I wonder what the actual direct to consumer dealerships and, brand new car sales are going, because they have supply constraints as well. So I know, I'll get into it in a little bit, but it just kind of was something that I was thinking about. But when's the last time you bought a car? Just out of curiosity.
it's been a few years, maybe within the last 2 years, within always with the original salutations, Mr. Gillespie.
I love it.
I do too, and appreciate you guys hanging out with us this evening. Yeah, it's within the last 2 years. And I'm the type that unless it dies, I'm just gonna I'm gonna drive it until there's nothing better than. Well, there's some better things, but one of the great things in life is not having a car payment. So I like getting to that point and just really feeling like I'm getting the life out of my vehicle, take care of it and keep it on the road. But it's been within the last 2 years, and it was a little hectic.
I'm the same way. I have an Audi, and I'll never buy an Audi ever again. I've had it for maybe 6 years already. Yeah, 6 years, and it's a fun car to drive, but I want a new car, but not necessarily because like I want a new car. I just want a new car because I'm sick of my current one. But every single time I go and look at a car, it's just I don't want that car payment. I have so many other obligations to do it. It doesn't feel like when you're like younger, maybe like when you're a kid, like getting a new car was an exciting thing, and nowadays it just seems like the anxiety of purchasing one and then worrying about like if the tire's going to go flat, or is my engine going to be okay, and that type of stuff. It's and yeah, German car. Yeah, Audi is French for failure. Yeah, I agree. I'll never buy an Audi ever again. And no offense to Audi, that's just my personal experience, but they drive great. They just seem like crap. I don't know. That's just me though. But yeah,
I've got a soccer mom car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I drive a Toyota Highlander. I've got a 2015 Toyota Highlander.
That's a great car.
It's so reliable. It's got like third row seats. So I keep the third row folded down, and I carry all my stuff, my signs, my stuff I need for real estate, keep it in the back. But I jokingly, even if I'm I've had a lunch date, and the girl was like, "Hey, where are you parked?" I'm like, I'm in the soccer mom car right over here. And it always gets a little laugh. So yeah, but it's reliable, and Toyotas have been I think that's what I'm going to buy from here on out is a good Toyota product.
Oh, sweet. I didn't know. Looks like Wade and you share the same vehicle life there with I don't think a Highlander is a soccer mom, man. It's an SUV in my opinion, but it's a great car though. I think Toyotas are great cars. I'm looking at either an Acura or a Toyota, but I kind of want to veer towards the Acura SUV that we're looking at. So
But they're made by, who are they made by?
Acura is a Honda.
Okay,
Honda, yeah, and then Toyota. We're looking at Lexuses, or I think Infinity, which is Nissan. We were looking at that too, but I really like the way that Hondas drive, and it's get me there. So before I get into these slides, I wanted to kind of I'm gonna share this real quick. So I'm gonna highlight share slides, market style here. So the Fed had its day today, and going into the meeting, expectations with the market earlier this week, we're thinking the markets were basically saying that, oh, they're not going to change rates at all. However, there's a little bit of confusion when Mr. Powell, Fed Chairman Powell, he had said that there will be future rate hikes. Now, I don't want to really get into like the reasons of why that spooked the market so much, but it was confusing. I want to say from a mortgage lender standpoint, the lending market definitely adjusted to higher. So mortgage rates actually went up today. On a range, we're looking at high sevens again, maybe low sevens, maybe high sixes. Just depends on what kind of rate you want to get. But there was confusion for sure. And then initially the Dow was down around 350 points when it bounced back to, let's see here. Click on this. It was down still significantly, but the S&P and NASDAQ were actually in the green. I don't know if that's just I don't know if that market movement was just because of an assumption that people will stop taking out loans because of the higher rates. But what doesn't make sense to me is that the NASDAQ sector, which is obviously tech, it's growth stocks. It's weighted more with Apple, Amazon, Nvidia, like those type of growth stocks. Sure. However, in a higher interest rate market, which is what the Fed sounds like he's saying, growth stocks get hit because they're growth stocks and they depend on those lower rates for investors because they need money to be pumped into those stocks, whatever. It was just really odd. This is the most, you can't read a book. You might be able to read a book, but it doesn't make sense to me that we have rates high and S&P 500, 400 points off its all-time highs. And, real estate's still doing what it's doing with you. I'm definitely slow. So lending has definitely taken a hit, but unemployment is at an all-time low, or not all-time low, but it's at a low. And employment, people are hiring like crazy, and it's maybe not specific sectors, but it's still white collar jobs. It's still, services, all that stuff. So I was kind of thinking over the weekend, the people that are really in an okay kind of place, I feel, are professionals that are in that higher income bracket, obviously, but homeowners that are in that income bracket as well. If you're in a higher income bracket, you don't really have a control of inflation if you're in that higher income bracket and you don't own a home right now, sure, you're employed, you have income and all that, but you don't really have control over inflation because you don't have a house, you didn't refinance at lower rates with equity and all that. So it's not like a bad situation. You're just not in the most ideal situation compared to someone who did buy in 2016, 2017, 2018 and refinance in 2020, 2021. Would you agree with that kind of? It just dawned on me today, and we kind of talked about it a little bit last week, but
none of it. I mean, a lot of that's been a common theme since you and I've been doing this podcast, is that the data doesn't match reality in a lot of different ways. That I try to work mostly with sellers for that reason, but maybe that's inflating my maybe that's altering my experience to some degree, because if I work with sellers, um, mentioned to you backstage, I've got a couple of buyers who I'm not sure they're ready, but it's just a matter of, can we get in there and get a dog in the fight and compete, for quality listings is still an issue here. So across the board, it just seems like there's a lot of things that haven't made sense, if what we're seeing versus what the information states.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the one thing I'm confused the most about is the growth in equities is just baffling to me, because in my opinion, we should be under 4,000 in the S&P 500. It just doesn't make sense to me, just primarily based on an interest rate environment that we're in right now. I haven't looked at PE ratios on things. I think that's kind of that's a topic we may take a few months to get into, because I don't want to overwhelm people with those type of things. But it was just really, and I think and even more so, I felt that the Fed had a confusing kind of tone to his press conference today. You don't raise rates, however, you're going to raise them in the future. So, like, why would you just stop? In some of the stuff that I've read, and just kind of overall, just looking back at history, when the Fed goes a certain pattern, whether that's up or down, it's hard to deviate. Like, once you stop, either you can't once you stop from raising rates, like when you stop, if you stop that kind of trend, it's really hard to stop that trend and then go back to that trend. So it's weird for him to stop raising rates and then say, "Oh, later down the road, we're going to raise them a couple more times." You see what I mean? It's like trying to turn around a boat, a very, very big boat. So I don't know if the market was calling his bluff or what, but I honestly, and I'm coming from a banker side, I wouldn't have been surprised with an increase by 25 basis points. I was confused that the Fed did say that we are going to raise rates later down the road. It's just a little bit more fascinating of a thing. So, anyway, and with mortgage rates again today, I mean, once the news came out, we were hit, half an hour later. So it definitely did hit us. So, not frustrating, just kind of a kind of moment for me. So
it seemed like it was going to be a lot more celebratory than it was. That's one of the articles I read today was they mentioned that they wanted to use this time to just kind of assess things. So I don't know if I don't know. I mean, it was kind of to not do it and then say, but we're going to. Yeah, I think that was, I don't know. I don't know that the market really wanted to hear that. It seemed like
it's very confusing. I mean, from an interest rate standpoint and like a lender, it's very confusing. Hold on one sec. I got to do something real quick.
Sure.
Got to make an adjustment here.
Not a problem. Thank you, Michael Jizzy. That's Mr. Wade. That is
sorry about that. I just
no problem.
Okay.
Wade, that is crazy, man. The truck prices. That's
we're gonna get into it in just a second. Yeah. So yeah. So I've always liked the auto part stores. Ever since I was probably in my late 20s, as far as looking at stocks that, everyone always looks at sexy stocks like an Apple, like an Nvidia, or what's up, my friend Fedora Khan in the house, an Nvidia, or that new AI stock, which is why I kind of tweeted one today, just to get people interested in like investing in whatever. Or Marvel for a long time was kind of a sexy stock until they got acquired by Disney. But no one ever really talks about these auto part stocks. And for the longest time, if you look at an well, let's look at one real quick. So I'll take AutoZone, for example. AutoZone. Everybody knows AutoZone, I'm pretty sure. Even if you don't own a car, like I'm pretty sure you know AutoZone has been around since forever. Brad, do you shop at AutoZone or are you an O'Reilly guy? Just out of
Sure.
curiosity.
No, O'Reilly is AutoZone's been around forever. So we've had a number of locations. Probably everybody that sees the logo, I mean, the jingle automatically goes off in my head the second I see the logo.
Yeah. And would you
You know,
say
it's
this is like a sexy stock?
I wouldn't call it sexy, no, but it's
Yeah.
probably like you know, this is when you mentioned that you were going to talk about this, I was like, I always try to figure out what you're gonna touch on. So it's interesting to see this. I mean, I'm in the podcast and I was excited to hear what you had to say about it. So hopefully everybody else gets plenty of value from this as well. This is
Yeah,
I
I
was
do hope so.
intrigued, very intrigued.
So yeah, so I've, obviously with like what we're talking about just now, like you had a car, it's a 2015, Highlander, and with supply constraints with, supply and demand with automobiles, it's like I'm not going to buy a new car because holy shit, a Ford truck, a Ford Lightning is 109,000. A Tesla is like 50K for the low end with just like seats in it. So I'm gonna drive my hunker because I don't give a crap because I just can't afford I can't afford a car. I need to get around somewhere. I'm just gonna buy new transmission, new whatever, and I'm gonna go to AutoZone because they're the most, they're the most known retailer for auto parts. And I'm just gonna, instead of paying $500 a month or whatever, 250 to $500 a month for a new car payment, I'm just gonna pay $100 to put new oil in my car, and I'm fine with it. I think the lifestyle has changed as well, as far as like people not owning or not it being like a status symbol as much as it used to be. I think with younger generations it is, but like, for kind of our age range, it's just like, man, just give me the freaking point A to B. I don't give a shit. And I don't want to. I think a lot of people say, oh man, I don't want a car payment, but I will drive my other car till 200,000 miles. And I haven't looked at the data, but on average, I bet you the mileage on cars compared to like 10 years ago, it's probably like up by 10 to 20%. You know what I mean?
Right.
And with that said, I'm comparing AutoZone to also a really well-known company, Boeing. And you would think, now before I do this, would you think over a 10-year period what would be a better stock to own, AutoZone or Boeing? Just out of curiosity, what do you think? Just without just thinking about it.
Boeing, hands down. Yeah.
All right. Well, Brad, that's AutoZone and that's Boeing over. So since
Holy
2011,
cow. Wow.
yeah, crazy, right? So over, let's see, let's do a 5-year period. Okay. So over a 5-year period, so let's say 5 years ago that you invested in Boeing, you're down 41%. However, you took that same amount and invested in AutoZone, you're up 256%.
This
Isn't that
gold.
crazy?
Yeah,
Crazy,
that's
right?
nuts. Yeah. Well, it's always been better. I mean, you look at that graph, it's always been a better stock.
Consistently, right?
Yeah.
AutoZone just I really think because of the length of how long people own cars and the used car sale market, I mean, it's just phenomenal compared to the new cars as well. It makes sense to me that AutoZone is doing better over a 5-year period versus Boeing. Let's do O'Reilly just for fun here. I'll take
that's really interesting. I was just going to say that's really interesting to see. You do have like the small dips, but the overall trajectory is up. It's like you've got small movements in between, but if you look at the step back and take a look at that, it's an upward trajectory. You know, it's just that's really interesting to me.
Yeah. Let's see here. Sorry about that. I got distracted by my garage there. So this other graph here. So on the top here, and I'm sorry you can't really see it, but the top is AutoZone. So up the top here, and it's a pretty expensive stock. I mean, as far as dollars are concerned, it's it's in the 2Ks, right? Right below it is O'Reilly, which is kind of like Pepsi to Coke when it comes to auto parts. And still, I mean, it's up 221%. So if you bought, if you bought either one of those stocks compared to Boeing, which is like a bellwether stock, everyone knows Boeing. If you just kind of went off your intuition of knowing about cars and your own kind of like, oh, I'm going to go to AutoZone instead of buy a new car. Kind of invest in what you know and what kind of makes sense and be kind of aware what's around you. Your decisions that you make as a consumer as well.
So Michael Baker's got me thinking. Have you run either one the same? Have you looked at either one of those?
So
Advanced?
those are also really good stocks to own as well. I haven't looked at them because they're kind of third and fourth in line.
Right.
But again, if you're comparing versus like a Boeing or maybe not an Apple or maybe not like Amazon, but kind of on that same level of like, oh, I know Boeing, I know like I'm just gonna run it, McDonald's, I know those companies. The growth of these auto parts stores, it's very consistent and it's very high. And everyone's trying to I guess kind of my point is like everyone's trying to find that next hot stock, that next meme stock, when that next meme stock's right in front of you. It's right down the street a mile away on your Yelp. You know what I mean? So something to kind of think about.
Can you hover where? All right, so where's the pandemic on there? I was just trying to see, like, if you look at the trajectory for
right here's the pandemic, the start of pandemic. So March of 2020. That's when everything just tanked, right?
Yeah.
But ever since the pandemic, like any other stock, 2019 here, I mean, it had kind of a slow kind of. I think right here, I don't know if you can see that, but right here, I have to say probably a lot of work from home, so not as many cars being sold and not a lot of cars being worked on at that point. But I mean, look at this. I mean, 2021. I mean, a lot of companies grew, but the sustainability of this throughout last year, which was like a bad year for stocks, quote unquote, right? And it had a really big high. I mean, it was up 300 points in May. I think this has kind of been I think this dip here has probably been like they probably had a bad quarter. I'm not sure, but just looking at it from an eyeball perspective, when when we're right, we're always looking at those graphs and like I'm always doing my market report and like, oh, this is how it was. Like, however, these AutoZone or these auto parts store stocks like in Advanced Auto Parts and Pep Boys, I don't think they're bad ideas to look at and just kind of see. I probably wouldn't like get going all in at this price point, but one day we'll look into like what I look for and like what I look for as far as entry point, kind of like when you're buying a comic on the dip or whatever. So,
right. Yeah. I will say in my experience, AutoZone is the Chick-fil-A of the auto parts and auto, I guess auto parts or auto accessories. That they're the Chick-fil-A of their business. And what I mean by that is, you get a battery, they'll install the battery. They'll do a battery test for you. They'll if you buy wiper blades from there, they will put them on your car for you, no charge. I mean, it's just it's great customer service. So that's that's probably why they're at the top. And they're clearly at the top. They are number one in their field.
Yeah. And I think location. They're very close to like other. So like I was getting my oil change at an oil change spot, and the AutoZone and O'Reilly's are kind of like, it's kind of pick your poison. And so if you're not only, it's kind of what's nice about these two companies is they're also marketing towards not just the regular retail consumer, but the business consumer as well. So you're hitting these two segments of your business. And if you're right next door to an oil change place, what if they need like a filter that their customer needs? They gotta run over next door. It's just cash. You know what I mean? So I don't know, like, as far as the car enthusiast, like, like a race car person, or like vintage. I don't know if they cater to that market, but I mean, I've gone more to O'Reilly's and than I have my dealership. You know what I mean? So it just kind of spoke to me like years ago. And I used to own AutoZone around 1,400. I bought it around, I think, I want to say like 1,000. And I was happy with it. It was more of like oh, you were on to something, that kind of thing. It fits the Warren Buffett model if you want to use as a kind of a example. So anyway, that kind of a little fun thing. Thanks for letting me do that, guys.
Very intriguing.
Thanks. Yeah. And then Ford, for example, Wade's definitely, and it's frustrating. Ford's a great company to own, or Ford's I think they've done a lot better as far as their quality of car, American made, all that. American cars kind of get a bad rap, honestly. But it's weird because Ford and like new car companies, specifically like electric cars, they are having the same crisis that housing is having, that you're having, that I'm having. It's supply and demand. And my cousin-in-law, he's been kind of testing out the market, and we kind of talk back and forth. He really wants a Ford Lightning. My wife, my legal wife, she's really into trucks, and she definitely wants a Ford. When I ask her, like, what kind of car do you get? She's like, oh, Ford. Like, well, or what kind of truck you get? She's Ford. It's like a no-brainer kind of thing. Well, like Wade was saying in the chat, the sticker price for a Ford Lightning, so it's like kind of like their base model Ford electric truck, it's like 60 grand. However, because there's not that many and they're just in huge demand because it's a hot car and it's electric, right? They go for 6 figures for a Ford truck, not a Mustang, not a GT, but a Ford Lightning truck. And that just speaks so much bubble to me. Like, I get supply and demand and all that, but for an American truck that's not luxury, in my opinion, that's just more utility, right? I just cannot. No way you could get me to pay 109, 106,000 for a depreciating asset that just came out like a year ago.
So does the base model? I saw like a Model T on Friday, and to do the windshield wipers, there was you had actually turned a little knob by the windshield to get it to go back and forth. So everything's manual. So is the base model of the Lightning, do you have to roll your own windows down, or is there still like
I don't know. That's a great question. That makes me kind of laugh. But I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think so. But man, for 106,000, that thing better open by itself. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's a lot of money for an American car. Like, let's just be honest. Like, American cars just aren't known for that. And I haven't done a deep enough dive to kind of see like what the supply, like, is it the chips that I think it's the chips are still kind of like a big issue, but like, what else could it be that is not gonna, that could help, the industry? And it's actually performed pretty well compared to previous years. Here, let me let's see what I'll do. I don't know if people like me doing these kind of like technical analyses or whatever, but
no, I like it. Yeah,
okay.
I think it's great.
I don't like doing technical analysis because I feel it's not really my style of investing, but it's more visual than anything. So like we just talked about O'Reilly and what was it? AutoZone, right? So this is the 5-year Ford graph hasn't done that well. I mean, if you bought in 2020 during the dip, you're up 300% or 200%, I guess. But gosh, like you would think this company that's charging 106,000 per unit would be making a lot more money, right? It's just kind of weird. I don't know. I personally never invested in engine or cars, so
what's the spike? What's the spike there?
let me see here. I don't know.
That was January of last year.
January 2022. I don't know. But it's
pretty
still
significant spike. Did they announce their electric truck then or something?
It might have been. I think the big thing with like any car company lately is that they have these orders for these pre-orders for these trucks, but people were waiting 8 months for the truck. They usually took like 2 months, you know. So anyway, I just wanted to use it as a comparison because people know Ford, but I've never invested in Ford ever, and I don't think I ever will. Just because of like look at the performance of the stock. So anyway, excuse me. Oops.
That is interesting.
Yeah. I just never would. Ooh, wait a second. We talked about this one last week, so delete that one. Delete that. I thought I had that updated. My apologies. These last two, I've talked about Lucid ad nauseum, but I didn't want to put that there. But Rivian was another stock that I think has a lot of potential. It's a little more risky because it is a vertical integrated company, just like Tesla and just like Lucid. Their trucks are all electric, and the trucks do cost around the same amount as a Ford Lightning. I don't know the wait time for them. The risk with Rivian is that, well, one, it's a smaller vehicle, so it's more for like the city trucker, I guess you'd call them. The other thing too is that it's a newer company, so if God forbid the company goes under, who do you go to with these electric cars? That's a big thing for me too. Like as a consumer of an electric car, of anything new, like if I need to get it fixed, who do I go to? An electrician? Like I can't go to Ford to have them fix my Rivian, you know? It's kind of confusing. That's like one thing for me. Would you ever buy an electric car? Like does it like suit you at all?
I could get on board with it. Maybe by the time my soccer mom car dies, I'll be ready to I'll consider it, but I'm open to it. Yeah, I'm open to it. But that would be my concern too. Like so you would have to take it to the dealership, whatever dealer sells this car, to work on it, and that's going to be outrageous. So every it just seems like, I mean, gone are the days where they're making it where you can't really work on your own stuff,
Yeah.
But that would be my concern is transitioning to that and having to take it to a dealership and knowing it's going to be, well, we're the only ones who can work on it. So basically charge whatever, we feel like we need to in order to get fixed what you need fixed. Yeah.
Right. Michael Baker says Rivian could be the next Yugo then. It could be. That rings a bell to me, like from like when I was a little kid, but it could be. That's the problem with these startups is like, and I have stock in Lucid. I've had Rivian at a time because they're so exciting to like, to be part of like ground zero for a revolutionary quote unquote company. It's exciting. And I think that's what makes these stocks so attractive. And I don't have all faith, but I do have faith that the leaders of these companies are actually trying to do something to turn a profit, right? The tough thing with like a Tesla, like a Rivian, like a Lucid is that it just takes so much money to really get a profit that your investors have to have a lot of patience. And a lot of investors are short-sighted, like comic book collectors, the 2021, 2022, that they want results right away. Well, I think it's just impossible with the car because you have to have vertical integration to own every single facade of profit. And if you don't have the sales and production, how are you going to convince investors to put more money into the company? You know, Rivian and Lucid, I'm just going to put them together. They're both having that kind of problem. And Rivian trades around 14.5 per share. Lucid just had a shelf offering, so they pumped more supply into the market, which diluted investor percentages, which isn't a great thing, but they did it to raise cash, so $3.5 billion. So they kind of had to make the tough decision to issue more stock to pump more cash into the company to create more production and, you know, what have you. So they are backed by the Saudis. Rivian isn't, but Lucid is backed by the Saudi investment fund. So I don't think any of the leaders from Lucid, unless they're nuts, are going to run off or commit any fraud, because Saudis are going to come after you. It's kind of
Right.
a lot of motivation, right? So from an investor standpoint, though, that's safe. I'm just saying. But anyway.
So are they lobbying for number two? Is that what these companies are trying to do? I mean, are they trying to, you know, Tesla is number one,
Yeah.
I would think.
Mm-hmm.
So are these companies trying to, or maybe they think either they're trying to lobby to be number, you know, who's the second best in that market, or maybe they think it's new enough that they can overtake that position if they do it properly.
I think it's more like Lucid tries to definitely market itself as the better option for the luxury sedan that Tesla has, like the Model S or whatever it is. And the stats are there. So I think they're in line. They're trying to be number one. I think with Rivian, they're trying to be the number one truck company. So they're more in competition with like a Ford, or I can't think of any other truck companies that kind of compete with them.
Is that what Scout's going to be doing when we were talking about the that Scout factory that's going in South Carolina? They're electric trucks and SUVs.
I don't know. I should look into Scout. I don't know. I think what these car companies, and just this is just like my kind of assumption, is there's a lot of laws that are going into effect that are making electric more like kind of forced upon the consumer. And I think over here, generally, like in the West, like with Tesla being such a forefront and being in everyone's face, I think the electric option is being more in demand versus like 10 years ago. And I think it has to do with a lot with like the charging stations around here. The network is so vast, and so it makes more sense to buy an electric car now because of the anxiety is gone away with like, oh shoot, what if my car isn't charged enough? So I think the only problem is the mass electric car just hasn't come to market yet. Tesla, I guess, in a way, but that's still a really expensive car. So I guess to answer your question, I don't know if they're trying to be number one. I think they're trying to replace current gasoline cars and just get them out of the market entirely. That's, I think, they're.
Yeah, and if number one can't keep up with demand, then there's obviously an opportunity to be had there.
Yeah.
You know, if they can leverage and get in there, there's a huge opportunity.
And I think it's like, you know, but it's really hard to become a successful electric car company because there's so much money. Like it's only just like the manufacturing of the car, but like the software is so expensive to develop. And it's really tough R&D. And then just put on top of that, you got to market a brand new car and sell someone else on a lifestyle change, really. So, but yeah, they're just kind of fun stocks to kind of look at. And, you know, people always ask, what's the new hot thing, or where can I get on like the ground up? Those two are like kind of that example, but they're very risky. So I say proceed with caution. So, and that's my segment for stocks today. So I didn't have a bunch on West Coast real estate. I just was coming from a money standpoint. It, rates are ranging again from 6.5 to like the high sixes. I did these slides before the FOMC announcement, so they're not entirely accurate. So the rates are now ranging from like high sixes to low sevens. The 10-year was at 3.83. You still want it below that 4% kind of mark, but it's trending higher, and I don't like that for the 10-year, which is the most important rate to look at when you're thinking about mortgage rates. And I don't know when I'm ever going to change this little bullet point, but I just left it. Issue still inventory. That's a big, big issue. So
I think a couple of years down the road, we're still going to see that bullet point.
gosh,
It
yeah.
just,
I mean, who
it's
knows,
a
right?
little, yeah, it's a little scary. And I was telling somebody, we've talked about it. I think we've talked about it on here, but I was telling somebody yesterday, I don't know, if and if you've watched the show, we've discussed this, but an average healthy market is around a 6 month supply. And I wondered, it was a guy, buddy of mine in our office. I told him, I said, we might be resetting what the average market is. If the average market is a 6 month supply, I don't know, and we're at about a 2 month supply now, and this is a national number. It's about 2 to 2.5 month supply, so we're not even halfway to normal. So
Right.
what might be happening is we could be resetting the normal.
Mm-hmm.
We might not ever a 6 month supply is going to feel like way too many houses. When we've spent the last couple of years operating at a deficit, a 6 month supply is going to feel real like it's going to feel like a buyer's market, and it's really not. It's right split right down the middle. So, and I think we talked about this before, but just in case if you're catching us for the first time or whatever, but the shoot, I forgot what I was going to say. It'll come back to me. The day. So, the supply is if another house weren't built or listed, that's how long you can go before there's no houses for sale. So 2 to 2.5 months, that's a really short, a short time frame. So just keep that in mind when you hear that, and we talk about that a good bit here, the how many months supply there is. That's what we mean when we're saying that.
Yeah. And also like not to like force a panic or like a sense of urgency, but if you're waiting and you have the ability to buy a home and you feel that you're comfortable like in your financial situation, it's you just can't. I mean, and I've been so shocked at just the way that real estate's been working. It's there's just like there's no let up, like it's still hot. There's still people that want to buy a home, and there's just not enough inventory. It's just a crazy thing.
I think
Anyway,
it seems like the reporting and the media has been working against us to some degree, and it's the reason why we're here on Wednesday nights is to debunk some of the things that you're hearing. People still are saying that they want to wait. I talked to I'm trying to reach out to investors. I think now is a great time to invest. If you want to build your investment portfolio, I think now is a great time to do that. Simply because I got a call today, a client that I mentioned to Ferd backstage. I got a call today from a client that I worked with a couple of years ago. It was before the pandemic, and he wasn't really prepared for how competitive it was then. And he said, "Hey, how's the market?" And I said, it's good. It's competitive. It's things are selling. There's it's we're staying busy.
mhm.
Just inventory's low. And he said, I said, but on the flip side, rent rates are going up. I've got two clients who one had like a $200 increase for their, hey, it's time to resign, and it's going. By the way, it's going up $200, and another was close to $400 a month. So he said, well, that's why I'm reaching out to you. I'm seeing how expensive it is to rent. So, had he jumped in the pool when I was trying to help him out a couple of years ago, it would have been, must be shy viewers. Oh yeah. Maybe people are watching. I know my mom will watch. She doesn't even have a YouTube account, so she's watching, and that you'll never. There's no record of her having.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'll have to go over one day and help her to set up.
Yeah.
Set up her account, and she can comment as long as she doesn't, share stories about me or anything. But
no, she's definitely gonna comment now.
Yeah, but that's the deal. I mean, it's like they're, hey, I'm ready to jump back in the pool because I've been renting, but it's going up and things are tightening, and it's and everybody's feeling it. So there's a lot of people who still expect the market to, if you predict that home values are going down, if you don't set a time frame for yourself for that to happen, I mean, eventually everybody's right in their predictions if you don't give yourself time frame, because it's cyclical. It's always going to, home values go up and then they'll dip, and there's ebbs and flows to this whole thing. So if you're predicting a decline, well, yeah, eventually you'll be right. But we just don't see it. And it's the whole, like I said, it's the whole reason we're here on Wednesdays sharing this information, is that we're, what we're seeing is not, and it's our livelihood. That's what me and Ferd do for a living. So if we're seeing something, if things are being reported that don't jive with what we're seeing, it's our duty to get you some information that you can use so that you can make an educated decision about your situation. And part of what I'll talk about is, if you own a home, like strategies to do that, how to navigate this market as a seller. So, okay, credit tip of the day.
I'm going to change it up a little bit today because I went kind of heavy in equities, and I kind of wanted to give kind of the future generations. And I don't know if there's parents in here, and I don't I know I may have some relatives in the chat or viewing, but they're not telling me who they are, but that's fine. But I've always talked about, like, how can I get my kid into stocks, or how can I get them involved into looking at things? And I've always said, okay, well, just go to the mall with them and just see where they're shopping or what kind of stuff they're into. Well, to kind of take it a step further into that, I always feel like the best practice is practice, right? So people always ask me about how can I get my kid into investing? A custodial account. And I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a mortgage guy. So what's a custodial account? A custodial account, and I have these for my nieces and nephews, is an account that you can start for your child. And so you're the custodian. So you're basically in charge of it. And you can put, I don't know the exact amount per year. I only put like $25 like a month for each kid, and then like $50 on their birthdays. But you can essentially put money into their account, and either you or they can log in and buy stocks or mutual funds or bonds, any of that type of stuff. So all the stuff that I've talked about today, you can open up a custodial account for your kid or your niece or your nephew. And upon the age of 18, the money is theirs. So instead of maybe taking that birthday money and buying Pokemon cards for them or buying comic books for them or video games, you don't have to take all of that money. You can take a little bit of it and put it into a custodial account, and then say, hey, little Fernando or whatever, God willing, who knows? What about that? We just went and saw Miles Morales today. Have you ever thought about wanting to buy stock in Sony ever? And little Fernando was like, oh, yeah, they'd be kind of cool. They buy to age 9. They buy, let's say, 50 shares. Well, let's say by the time they're 15, they hold on to that Sony stock and Apple buys Sony. And they've held on to that stock. When they turn 18, it's basically their money. You could use it for whatever. There are tax implications with it. I'd talk to a tax professional or a financial professional about that, as I can't really give advice to that per se. But if you really are serious about not just for yourself, but for your future generations and want them to, maybe your child's just like, you just want to get them educated into that type of thing. A custodial account's a really great way to get them kind of interested into, saving for their future. I wish I had a custodial account at age 5. I had one at age 12 or 13, I think it was. And I'll take a 5-minute portion and the rest is yours. But the best stock I ever invested in, I think I was 16, 17 years old. I worked at Toys R Us, and every Tuesday we had moms come over or come into the store, and they would buy the crap out of every single theme Pokemon. I in the store. It was 1999, 98, and Pokemon was the hottest thing I'd ever seen in my life, right? And little 16, 17-year-old me was curious of who's getting money from Pokemon. And I went to my dial-up modem and I just basically I searched on Alta Vista. You remember Alta Vista?
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, I was just replaying the sound of the dial-up in my head when you said that.
Oh, okay. So dial-up,
I miss
whatever.
the sound. I miss it.
And I waited like 30 minutes to log in. And Captain Obvious already knows what's going on. So he's
what's
very
up, Captain Obvious? Thanks for hanging out.
He's north of you in North Carolina, I believe.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I simply Alta Visted, not Googled, but Alta Visted, American distribution for Pokemon. And there was a small little company called Kid Entertainment, ticker symbol. I still remember it to this day, KE. And it was trading around $8 a share. And I asked my dad, I was like, hey, Dad, can I get 110 shares of this stock? And he's like, oh yeah, I'll deposit into your account. I love that you're into this stuff. My dad immigrated here from the Philippines, and he didn't have a lot of knowledge about, how to actually trade stocks or whatever, but told our broker over at Piper Jaffray. You remember Piper Jaffray? I don't know if you've heard of that company, but they got started by Citibank. So they're an old school unit. They got gobbled up a long time ago. Bought 110 shares of this company. Pokemon did not stop selling. Those cards would just go off the shelves. My $8 stock turned to 110.
Wow.
Over 18 months, something like that. I was just some stupid zit-faced braces kid that worked at Toys R Us part-time. And I mean, the percentages are like, 1,000% or whatever, right? But I didn't have any college education. I was just kind of wearing my surroundings. I was just curious, and kind of Ted Lasso, be curious about things. And if you do want your kids to learn, maybe not so much, maybe at the start, do it for them, but like just ask them questions of like, what are you interested in? I always ask my wife's kids or her boys, like, dude, who's your Miles or who's your Spider-Man? They always say Miles. So I always get like that kind of interaction with them. Or like, what are you into, man? Like, or my nephew, he's really into Fortnite. And so I'm like, I wonder if you can buy like stock in Fortnite or like, do a deep dive or whatever. Or like, hey, Andrew, I bought you 10 shares of Lucid just in case of the next Tesla. Not go up a lot, but just in case, like it's yours, until you're age 10. And that's kind of and I think it's also a good relationship to have with your kids or with, your nieces and nephews and all that type of stuff. But I thought it'd be kind of a cool story to share with everybody. And, we live in a time that information is at the touch of your freaking fingertips and in milliseconds. So this is kind of my, like, my get off segment. You have no excuse to at least research and see what all this stuff's about. And I kind of hope you guys take that in consideration if you have little ones or just a relative that you think could benefit from investing or just saving and all that stuff. Instead of just putting it into a savings account and getting 4.5%, why not put it into a savings account and get 1,200%. I don't know. You may not get returns like that, but I hope our show kind of helps people kind of realize like the potential that they may have, even with a 16, 17-year-old kid that didn't know any better than, some 45 professional that have looking at stocks all day. So anyway,
Yeah, you may not get that return, but you definitely won't if you don't shoot your shot, like
Right.
do the research and check into all that. So that's cool. I desperately hope my nieces and nephews aren't watching because they're going to feel really slighted because you're like you've set the bar so high for uncles everywhere by doing that.
And yeah, it's just more of like a thing I can just share with like I don't have kids of my own, so it's like it's a cool thing to kind of tell them, hey, I forgot to get you a present, or like I forgot to get you something for your birthday this year, but I put $50 in your custodial account. They're like, my what? I'm like, don't worry about it. When you're 18, you'll thank me, that kind of thing. So it's kind of fun. So
say Uncle Ferd didn't get us a present again is what I heard.
yeah. I'm so bad presents, man. I suck at it. So my wife's way better.
That's a good alternative. Yeah, they won't appreciate you until they see that, and that's really good. All right, so I was not able to. We've both been super busy, so I wasn't able to contribute my information to the slide. So can I share? I've got a tab open where I put my notes in the event that
I'm sure you can. Yeah.
In the event that, let me see if I can share my screen, and then I just want to share this one tab. So in the event that we did connect and all right, so yeah, now I can, there we go. So in the event that we did connect and I could add this, I had kind of made notes for everything. So we can go off of this. Okay. So I'm going to read it from my screen. But the whole idea was we talked a little bit about buyer strategies last week and ways to win those bids, which, it's stuff I'm going to have to employ. I picked up a buyer today, got a pre-approval letter from my lender here that I do stuff with. So it's all strategies. The stuff that I tell you is stuff that I'm doing. So they're all strategies I'm going to have to employ. So I thought, well, let's talk a little bit about sellers and how to get to that point. And if you have questions about this, like I said, I mean, if you want this information or anything, hit me up on Instagram or comment in the below after the video, and we'll get you the information. If you anything that you see here, if you want more information, hit us up. We really like this interaction. So seller strategies in today's market. I thought it would be cool to first address key factors why people move today. And some of this information was taken to ironically, I end up using a lot of information from Keeping Current Matters, which talks that I had planned to do this, and then I got this link that shared some information. So I pulled some of the stuff that they shared, but I had my own points and kind of plugged in what they mentioned, which I thought was really fascinating. But key factors why people move today: relocation. So if you're relocating jobs, the interest rate has got zero effect on you. It's if you have to move because of your job, you're not thinking about the rates at that point.
Right.
Upgrading. So some people may choose to take the equity in their house and upgrade. And these are all like reasons that have been given. People cited these as reasons why they were selling a house at in today's market. So they may upgrade their, it could be that, well, why would you upgrade if interest rates are going up? Well, if you're expecting another child and you don't have enough bedrooms, your life situation is not fully dictated by the interest rate, obviously. So your situation could be changing. Downsizing. All right. So there again, kids go off to college. It's you and your husband, and you're trying to figure out, like, who is this person that you've poured everything into the kids for the last 18 years or whatever, and now it's just you and your husband again. And hey, what are we got to like reintroduce ourselves to each other again. So you might choose, because you've got 5 bedrooms and it's just the two of you, you might need to downsize. Those, in my opinion, those, and I think you agree with this before we had mentioned this. That's the best scenario for sellers right now, is people who are downsizing, because you get to take this chunk of money and you're buying something less and just putting a chunk of money down on it. And those people are doing very well, using their equity and buying a smaller house. So, a lot less of a payment. You basically, in essence, giving yourself a raise every month.
Yeah.
Downsizing is a factor. Change in relationship status. So I tell folks, I hate to work with people when they're going through a divorce or something like that, but somebody, the way I kind of reconciled that in my own mind is somebody's going to get the business. It may as well be somebody who cares about you intimately,
Sure.
a lot of cases I help these people buy the house,
Yeah.
so I'm invested in their relationship and we hang out and we do stuff. So I would rather it be me. It's not pleasant, but there's nobody else I'd rather have, taking care of my folks than me. Yeah, I don't blame you, Michael Baker. It's rural is good. Rural's not a bad situation.
If you do
Plenty of
rural,
space.
just do all cash, because lenders don't like it's. I shouldn't say that. It's tough to get rural loans. A lot of banks don't do them because they don't have the infrastructure to really deal with it. I know he's probably just kidding around, but if you ever to look into it, just know that's not as easy to do it unless you have cash. Then it's a lot easier. But
I was introduced. I think we've got 2 sources here. This was, I guess, probably made popular by Chip and Joanna and HGTV and all this stuff. But barndominiums, like, are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
So there's 2 lenders here that are actively doing loans for land and building a barndominium on it. So a pole built house as opposed to a stick built house. So I thought that was interesting. So if you do that, Michael Baker, maybe you've got maybe there's a resource where you are where you can do a barndominium and just roam and feel free to urinate in your own backyard without anybody having that space, man. That feels like freedom. And not to mention, you probably see more stars than out in the country than anywhere else. So that's nice. So yeah, change in relationship status is another. And then health concerns. I do have a family now that's they're getting up there in age and had some health issues. So they're on they have a tri-level house that they need to sell, and they're looking to buy a 1-story. So health concerns could be a factor. Have you seen any or worked with any folks who were dealing with any of these factors in their move?
Yeah. So divorce was a big one last year. Because we were doing assumption loans. So basically one person was leaving, they get cash out, but they were keeping their same rate. And so we do what's called an assumption. And an assumption basically means is that the one party takes over the current loan as if it's not refinanced. If they qualify for it on their own, then it's no problem. But if they don't, then they have to kind of sell the house or whatever. But yes, divorce was a big one. I would say downsizing was another big one. The odd thing, though, is people were downsizing, meaning they were selling their house here and relocating to another state or east of the mountains, that kind of thing.
So were they getting more bang for their buck then? I mean, take their cash out and get their equity, and then they buy. At the peak here, there were so many people getting beat out by cash offers that were way over list price. And they're like, God, the house isn't worth that. I'm like, well, if you're from New York and you sold a house and you've got enough cash to buy a bigger house than you ever had in New York, here, you don't really, 30 grand is nothing to you, or 40 grand or
Yeah.
whatever you have to go over to win the bid.
Yeah.
That's nothing for them.
Mhm.
So we were facing that a lot with
Sure.
people moving here from out of town and paying cash for stuff. So
Michael says, so in other words, if I've ever getting divorced, I'm moving to South Carolina and calling Brad.
bring it on, man. Come on. Yeah. Love
Yes,
to have
sir.
you. Yeah. Where are you at, Michael? Has he ever said?
I
I'm not.
don't know where he's from, or if he has, I apologize, Michael, but I forget. Maybe
Yeah.
Arizona.
Remind us
I'm
where
not
you're
sure.
located.
Yeah, it was a location's a big one. I had one client buy in 2019, 2020, I want to say, and she was pregnant and Maryland. Okay, so East Coast. She was pregnant and they were like, we need a 5-bedroom. This 2-bedroom isn't cutting it for us. Kids are about, a lot of people, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, it's just a matter of fact, but even if they plan to have kids, they don't think of their first home as their last home, which you've talked about in the past. And I think like with you and I think I'd rather have someone buy their one and only home, honestly, because I feel like it's a more stable client to deal with if they need to do like renovations to the home or just need more consultation, right? And for you, and money's money, right? Let's just be honest. Like, it's easier for you to sell someone their first house. That's like their only house, I would assume. At least that's the kind of rhetoric I've gotten from other realtors. And I always say that, like, even if it's like 100,000 more, or like maybe it's like tipping your price range, the likelihood that you're going to make more money the next 2 to 3 years and you in that area, and it's hard to know, right? But if you're pretty confident that you're not going to leave that area, you might as well get that extra $100,000 to $150,000 like priced home, because it's only going to bump your monthly payment up by like $250. And if you bought at the height of the interest rate market, you're probably going to refinance down to lower anyway. Right. And you don't have to deal with all the other BS, unless you just, those other issues, right? Where it's like divorcing or, having to move, your job or whatever. It's, but yeah, I mean, if you think you're going to not have kids, if you know for sure you're not going to have kids, then yeah, I guess it doesn't matter to buy that smaller house. But like, I always feel like people are like, shoot, I should have went with the standalone versus that townhome that we got, because now that townhome or that home I wanted is now 300,000 more in 5 years, anyway.
And fortunately, being in a different market, we don't see a lot of the condo and townhome purchases. There's a lot more residential.
Sure. Oh, right.
And so that's good. Have you, I don't know, this is still on topic, but I sent you an email of a lender who was offering this a new incentive. Did you happen to look at that?
I perused through it a little bit, but what exactly was the incentive?
It
was like 10 grand or something, like credit or something.
Yeah, doing credit and doing like they're implementing like the we could. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't let's save that for next week. Let's
sure.
Oops, I had us pulled up. Yeah, let's save it for next week and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
And talk about like if there's any if there's any, because the other thing that's there are some, I mean, we'll have to implement some type of incentives for if interest rates are going up. I think it would be wise to be proactive and think about some type of incentives that we can offer buyers to kind of lighten the load a little bit. But maybe that'll be like a next week thing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So steps to take. I would recommend, and this is what I've had this conversation in the last 9 months or so with folks. Assess your family's current needs. Like, do you fall in one of those key factor areas? Is there something that's driving you to need to sell? Um, and the first thing I do is, in order to, like, everybody wants to know, well, what can I sell my house for? If I'm in the hole, obviously I don't want to sell, but establish what that sell price would be. And a good real estate agent can kind of help you with these, working all this out for you. Then take that number, determine your current equity. So how much do you how much equity do you have in your house? And then I take that information, have your real estate agent draft a seller net sheet and review everything together. So I take the equity of the house, or the thing I use, actually take the current list price, and you can subtract, you plug in a number, you can subtract what you owe on the house. And then it'll even factor, like, let's assign a number to attorney's fees. Let's figure out taxes. Let's figure out prorated HOA dues. All these variables that come into play. Let's calculate commission, rates for the agents. And it'll take all this stuff and spit out a number and tell you, like, hey, this is your net to seller at closing. And it's pretty close. It's not dead on, but it's fairly close. And look at that. And that's really something I use to help determine what, if it's a good time. And sometimes even I've done those steps, I've taken those steps, and people still, and you've talked about it, they just fall in love with their current interest rate. So I guess my suggestion is, the interest rate is not more important than your mental health. It's not more important than your okay. Got a Connecticut. We got George Lynch. He was a heck of a player, man. I enjoyed watching him.
He was the reason I want to go to UNC, man.
There you go. There you go.
That Michigan UNC, the Fab Five, the infamous timeout.
Wow.
I was so confused at what was going on. I was a little kid. I was like, what? He traveled? Anyway.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
Well, it was a travel on top of the timeout. So
he initially traveled, right?
He definitely drug his foot on that one.
Yeah. Oh,
God, I mean, what a recruiting job to pull that team in.
We'll never see anything like that ever again in college sports, ever.
No. Yeah, we kind of talked about it. Like, your mental health is not, the rate is not more important than your mental health, your sanity, your happiness. So I would challenge you to take a look and see, like, is there something that's, assess your family's needs.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an opportunity to downsize, take a look at it and see. And it doesn't cost you anything. I mean, most agents work the way I do. I enjoy being a resource for information, mm-hmm. and with the hope that eventually, should you pull the trigger, I'm the guy that you would want to work with. Mm-hmm. So take a look at that. It's because the number's not better than, your family's happiness and that kind of stuff. That interest rate is not, this is taking a look at these steps and these factors is equally as important as the interest rate, I would say. And this little snippet quote here, I grabbed from Keeping Current Matters, and I thought it was really, really well done. Decide whether it's the right time to sell your home. Deciding whether it's the right time to sell your home is a very personal decision. There are numerous important questions to consider, both financial and lifestyle based, before putting your home on the market. Your future plans and goals should be a significant part of the equation. So it's not fully rooted in, it's not solely an interest, an interest rate question. And there's some, there's some things we can look at to see if it makes sense. And it is a personal decision. And I pride myself, and I'm not a pushy salesperson. I don't, and I know Ferd's not that way either. If it doesn't work for you, I've told people, that you know, um, that maybe it wasn't a good time for them to make a decision or to do anything. I want you to remember that stuff. And when we have the opportunity down the road, I want that to stick out to you. So we aren't pushy salespeople. We're not gonna. You're more than a paycheck to us. Our clients mean more to us than that. So I can wholeheartedly say, speaking for both of us, that's the way we do business, and that's the way we work. So it's a personal decision and one you have to have with your family. But I would challenge you to take a look and see if it's if there are factors that at play that could make you a good candidate to pull the trigger. So anything you want to add to that, Ferd?
No, it's I mean, yeah, it all very similar factors of like, determining when you want to sell a house. The one thing I always tell people about, a home, it's an investment, quote unquote, and it's also it's still to this day for the regular consumer, the quickest way to garner wealth and create wealth, right? Because of equity and all that stuff, especially in America. The other thing too, though, it's your home, your mortgage payments. Ultimately, you are the one that is cultivating a home. I think that's I think more so than anything, that's the first thing a home should, or when you buy a house, that's the first thing that should be looked at. And I never like to make them an ATM, like a home an ATM. However, I don't know how many times I've had a client like medical bills, for example, or they lost their job and it just so happened that their insurance didn't cover it. Well, I think a lot, and I think we should talk about this next time, more get into the financing and real estate part. But I always try and encourage people to get a home equity line of credit, because not so much it's a sale for me, but I do get paid on it. I'll just be arbitrary on that. It's a just in case product, because one, it's free. One, it's cash flow heavy, so it helps with your cash flow. And a lot of people, unfortunately, don't have a lot of savings that's liquid, right? A lot of equity in their home. And in case the one time that you need those funds and you don't have available to them, it causes more stress for you versus someone saying like, shoot, I do have $100,000 line of credit. I don't really want to tap into it, but it's going to make me feel better if I do, and then figure out kind of later down the road. Or I want to buy land in the middle of Prosser, where my wife is from, and maybe eventually, if land just keeps going up and up, at least I can acquire it at a lower price and then maybe decide to build on it later. That's a main kind of thing. And what Michael was saying in the chat, his dream would be to own like a rural home. Well, maybe like one day he's like, I was watching Sunset to South and I got enough home, maybe it would be kind of cool to have a cabin in the middle of, North Carolina or Maryland, or maybe you want to, buy some real estate down in South Carolina and talk to Brad. He wants to use a HELOC because, he just wants to tap into that equity and buy land or buy a cabin, whatever. There's other ways you can still finance and use financing from your current home that are still financially beneficial to you. Oh, and home equity line of credit, the interest you can use that for deductions too against your taxes. And we'll talk about that next time for sure. But yeah, that was great. We always, before we started the show, we've always had similarities in how we work and provide value to our clients as well. So I hope we provide value to our viewers also, talking about not just real estate, but equities and investing, and just kind of preparing yourself for your financial health as well as your actual health, all that good stuff. So anything else to add for the show? We had 10 live at one time, man. I guess the word's getting out about our show, so that's great.
Nice. That's awesome. That I think
7
that's a
live right
record.
now, so it's really good.
Yeah, I think
definitely a
that's
record.
we're pushing some numbers. That's good. I'll just say hi to my mom. I'm assuming one of those tennis are. We'll have to set up an
I probably
account or get her username.
I probably got some in-laws in the account or in the chat as well, but
Good.
we
Well, they
we've been doing some, I've been posting some videos on our Instagram as well, but I do kind of daily updates on the stock market and just, other things as well. But if you want to follow us on Instagram, we're trying to grow that platform as well, just to get the daily kind of like stuff. But we'll be here every Wednesday from 4:30 Pacific and 7:30 Eastern. So yeah, give us a follow, like, subscribe. We're trying to grow numbers there too. Just really, I think, again, we just want to provide value, whether it's 3 viewers or when I do enjoy our talks, and I learn something every day from you. So I really do appreciate it.
Same here, man. If you're not checking, I'll look at my watch sometimes. I'm like, all right, it's like 3 in the afternoon and Ferd hasn't posted his update yet. So I look forward to those, and
Good.
we've gotten really good feedback. I mean, people keep commenting. They a lot of people look forward to that. So I'm glad you do it from our joint channel, and because people definitely look forward to it. But thank you guys for hanging out with us. We do appreciate you very much.
All right. We'll see you. We'll see you on Instagram hopefully tomorrow, or maybe later tonight, and we'll definitely see you next Wednesday. Have a great week, everyone, and take care. We'll see you next week.
See ya.